This is Resonance, a podcast for leaders that unpacks the power of song, silence, and strategy.
We believe that great leadership begins with deep listening, not just to others, but to the still small voice within.
It's not just about being a successful leader, it's about being soulfully aligned as well.
In a world moving fast, Resonance invites you to pause and reconnect with purpose, people, and possibility.
We'll dive into some cool stories, celebrate with friends, and dig deep into the music too. 'Cause song has a way of saying what words cannot alone.
So whether you're leading a business, a team, or just trying to lead your own life with more meaning, this is Resonance.
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 Hey, everybody, welcome. It is another Resonance podcast, and you got to get the tissues out for this one. It's going to get emotional. It's going to get intense. Might be sniffling by the time it's done, or you might be singing with joy. We never know. Mike Farrell, the monk guy, got like 9 new books coming out, as far as I can tell. He is a producing guy. He's all over the country, dealing with leaders and smacking them upside the head and saying, come on, get with it. And then, of course, our brother Steve Azar, the man, the legend, the Lomo La Legenda. He is all things and a bag of chips for sure. Golf turns out to be important to him. I don't know. I heard about this. Same thing with Farrell. I'm looking at a text thread over the weekend, and there was like 3 things that had something to do with things I knew about. And then there's 900 texts about putting, and apparently a key moment. Anyway, it is our amazing musician, amazing friend, amazing cook, amazing father, all the way around, cool stuff. So today we're going to be diving in. My name's Randy Harrington. Today we're going to be diving into the world of emotions. And Azar, this came from you, and I am not at all surprised that this is one of the buttons you would want to push, because one of the things that hooked me with your music were these lyrics and this bend of the chords and notes that just evoked emotion in me when I heard the music. And it's like you figured out a way to bypass my brain and go right to what it feels like. And one of my favorite lines is, because I would say this to myself back in the day, I don't need it. I don't need a pack of cigarettes and a bottle of cheap wine. Get me through the day. I don't need that. But what do I need, Steve Azar?
What you need is a second chance to get us right the first time.
Lord, that was the line. That was the jujitsu moment where it was like, I knew I needed to clean up my life. I knew I needed to get right. But what did I really need? I needed a second chance to get it right the first time. It was like,
what should have been, what ought to be, you here with me. That's all I need. Right?
This is it. So somehow or another, the secret sauce of Steve Azar's music is the ability to sort of, I see it as almost catching a firefly in the air, where there's an emotion that's out there. There's a feeling, it's distinct, it's profound, but these things come and go so quick. But you seem to be able to get a picture of it or bottle it or put it into something that we can then hear it again and again and again. And certainly Waiting on Joe, just about pick up any of Steve Azar's music and just take the word emotions and put those over your earmuffs when you listen, and it'll just knock your socks off that this is what you're able to create an experience with the music. Does this make any sense, Farrell, before we let him in here?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
and it's not only the music as you listen to it recorded, but we also know that it's the music that you listen to live. And the emotions that he brings out in his live shows, that really is the other aspect of it and Steve, as we all know, anybody that's listened to this podcast for 3.5 minutes knows that Steve's been touring since he was 103 years old. So, it's
That's what it feels like.
so no, he's been on the bus. He knows the drill here, and he knows how important it is to get that emotion out as he's performing live. And so today we're really going to talk about how do we utilize that emotion from a standpoint of leadership. How do we utilize that emotion? How do we capture that firefly in the bottle? And how do we utilize that? And so, Steve, you were the one that came up with this idea. So let's kick it over to you and let's talk a little bit about emotions.
Well, we were talking golf this week, and I was just thinking about the many players who have been so successful at the game who literally are a 0 to a 10 emotionally, but yet they're able to achieve great moments, especially when it has to happen. And, the fire of Tiger Woods how he just gets, he's actually created a whole brand of golfers who have become they working on their fist pump and really a whole other level of athlete who are in a different kind of shape, who are
That's
trying to be Tiger Woods, but who are very emotionally fired up. And they use that to get to the next hole, but yet they're able to contain themselves as golfers need to be in the moment, because at some point you got to have so much focus that your adrenaline can take over. So how do you juggle adrenaline? And sometimes they don't, sometimes they'll,
Right.
the joke is, it's not a joke. They'll have a wedge in their hands and they'll hit it 30 yards further than they've ever hit it, because they're in the middle of this incredible zone, but they're just so fired up, so much adrenaline. And it's amazing the difference in how far the ball will travel without them making any extra effort at all. It's almost like it just makes no sense, really. The club shouldn't go that far. They're usually,
I'm going to pause for just a second. This
yeah,
is an important point before
yeah,
we go any further, and that is to realize what you're saying is that whatever emotion is and whatever human performance is, it's a cocktail. It's a cocktail that's being shaken up in your brain,
yeah,
and then they're going to pour it out. And it's like, well, what the heck is going on in there? So emotions are both the cause and the effect
sure.
of
Yeah.
what's going on. And so this is the thing. This is what creates that feeling like you're in a blender when you're having
I'm
all of this.
glad you interrupted, because
Carry on.
I was in a blender and I was stuck. So I appreciate that. But seriously, then you look at some of these golfers like Retief Goosen, Ernie Els, this new kid, Cameron Young, who's been on the scene now, who are numb. They just show nothing. At
Huh.
no point do you see them even, there's no fist pump at all in their imagination. I mean, you're talking about the most exciting thing that could happen to you, and they're just here. And so it's interesting how there's two different sides of the spectrum. And of course, you got everybody in between. I love the idea of shaking the cocktail and everything else that can be blended up in between, and how that works for the individual to be successful. And golf to me, Randy, I know you don't play like Mike and I are, and no, listen, and I don't play like Mike. So, but the bottom line is that it's the greatest game. First of all, because it's the greatest relationship builder there is on planet Earth. It's the only game besides hunting and fishing that you can sit there and not have a ball that you're competing against, or you're moving around so much. You have 4.5 hours of spending time with someone, and those relationships can become very impactful in your business life if you get along on the golf course. You also find out how ethical people are, how
Yep.
patient people are, how temperamental people are. You find out every emotional aspect of a person on the golf course. Every single one of them comes out between the first hole and the 19th hole, especially the 19th hole, right, Mike? That's me. But it's serious. It's the only game where you really truly find how people really are inside, and that's a game changer for a lot of people.
There's a consultant I like who used to say about an engaged experience, any great experience. He says he likes experiences where people catch themselves being themselves. That was the
Nice.
phrase.
Nice.
I like that. And that's what you're saying. When you play golf, you're going to catch yourself being yourself.
Well,
Yeah.
We're gonna catch yourself being yourself.
We're going to know who you are because of the way you play that game.
My question
you.
to you is, how is it possible for leaders, golfers, athletes, musicians, whatever it is, consultants, how is it possible for the individual to be so successful and yet be so different emotionally? I've stumped you both. This is This is a moment I've been waiting on. I mean, do I need to rephrase that question?
His beard. I was just waiting for him to respond. But it's interesting. You hear a lot of talk today, and this isn't new, but you hear a lot of talk today about stoicism and the Stoics, and Ryan Holiday is one of the great writers on Stoics today, and he talks a lot about the Stoic movement and that kind of thing, and it's that kind of that steady as you go. Don't get too high, don't get too low. Consider everything. I mean, that's a great way to look at it. And bringing back to the golf thing, I think you can, if you look at some of these guys that are just steady all the way. Cameron Young is a great example and just won the Players Championship this past weekend. He was steady all the way through. And yet it's interesting when you listen to his interview afterwards. One of the things that he said is the most nervous I was was on that, 4-inch putt at the end to finish it off. I mean, he's got a putt this long, and he's nervous about that.
Because
But
reality is setting.
I mean, it's the duck that looks pretty calm on top of the water, but the feet are going like this underneath.
Yeah.
And I think that stoic approach is really, really good. On the other hand, I think there are times when emotion needs to take control, when we need to show some emotion as far as what we're trying to say, what we're trying to do, how we're trying to lead. Um, there's a fine line between staying the course and being calm, but also understanding that at sometimes people need to hear, whether it's the people we're leading, whether it's the people we're working with, whether it's our family, our friends, whatever, people need to hear emotion. They need to hear this idea that I've got more than just a flat heart rate, that I'm actually passionate about this. I'm excited about it. And I think that's where the emotion can be used to the positive.
So we do know emotion works to help coordinate body response. So this idea of of calming emotion to create this sense of reliability in physical performance makes sense. I'm sure doctors have got to deal with this. I mean, you're doing surgery on a patient, and this is like a big deal, but precision is the important value here, right? So this ability to control emotion, I think, is one of the characteristics of a mature leader. So I always get a little bit, and I think everybody gets a little bit edgy when they see a leader who pops off, right? And particularly if they're like really nice 1 second and then being a jerk the next. And this is one of those catch them being themselves things. And I'm sure this is something that shows up on the golf course, right? Where somebody hits a great shot and they're all like, oh, look at me. Okay. And we'll swagger down on the fairway.
They're that in a bag of chips, right, Randy?
They are. And then they hit the next one, and they hit it like I would, and it like injures an old woman across the way. Lawsuits unfolding. But anyway, and then they throw their club, God,
Yeah.
And then they go crazy. So those are the kind of people where once I see that sort of swing where, oh, the good thing makes me feel very happy and the bad thing makes me go crazy, I can't be around that.
Is that like
handle
bipolar leadership? Is there such thing?
I think that's your new book, Azar. That's Bipolar Leadership with Steve Azar. Lessons from the music business.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
I didn't know that was a thing or not.
I mean, that's essentially what I'm trying to say is that I don't know who you're going to be when you walk into the room.
Right.
That can't be good for any sort of, I just got uncomfortable. I guess that's the best way I can say it. So if I got uncomfortable hearing you say that, what about people that are really in it? Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And it is a kind of trauma, right? Especially if you're in love with or you depend on that individual, or that individual is literally your boss.
Yeah.
It is something that's going to change your brain. And this is one of the things we're beginning to understand, is that these incidences of subtle trauma, those things that you experience on a daily basis, but you go, it's not enough for me to get worked up about. It's not enough for me to do anything about it. I'm not going to cause a scene because of this. I'm just going to suck this up and move on. Well, that does accumulate. And so if you've ever had that feeling of just wanting to open the window and hang your head out and scream, that is because all of that stuff has just been building up in there, and it's big trouble.
Let me tell you guys about the one writing session, and I've been in so many that you can't count. The one I remember the most, it was the last time I ever wrote with this person. We actually had the first 2 songs we ever wrote got cut, and they got recorded. And so we were writing again, and you write, you're there together. I probably had a little bit, it was the beginning of my time in Nashville. So I was really just learning how to co-write and everything, because I'd never done it before. I was always on my own. And so I was in there and pretty comfortable with each other at this point. We already had some cuts together and all that. So I was doing something. He said, shut up. I mean, and I saw this side of him.
There you go.
Because he was trying to get his mind and he literally crossed the line for me, any songwriter. And that was that after he walked out that day, that was the last time I took a writing session with him. even if we were going to be successful. I realized that he reminded me of athletes that I've been on the golf course with or been in sports stuff, that are teachers I've been or coaches I've had or anybody in my life that I said, no. I can't handle that person and I can't be around that. And you sure can't open up, be vulnerable with somebody in the room like that. You have to be.
Right.
So the only time it ever happened in my life, that's the only time. And that was the only time I've ever walked away from a writing partner ever. And I've had a lot of them.
Did you tell him that?
No. I didn't feel like it would have mattered. And I didn't know what was going on with him emotionally. I knew there was a lot of alcohol involved in his life. I mean, probably up late till 2 a.m. and it was at 9:30, 10 o'clock. And he's very foggy at this point or whatever. But the bottom line is, alcohol or not, I saw that golfer throw that club and freak out. And it got very uncomfortable. And I said, no, that's not that. I don't have time for that.
That's right.
It doesn't make you feel right. As a songwriter, it doesn't make you feel right or anything. And I couldn't imagine talking to my kids like that. So he crossed that line, and that was the last time I wrote with him.
So you hit on a couple of very important things. One of the first ones is this idea of a bottom line, where they crossed a line, you said. He crossed a line. And how many times do you have that feeling where you just go, that's done?
Yeah, right.
This is done. There's nothing that can be said. I don't need to try and one of my the woman I talked about in one of the other episodes who worked at Target, and just because she liked to see, she would look at somebody and she'd go, well, he's just not my child to raise. That's what she would say.
Yeah.
And so the person would act like a jerk or do something terrible. She's not going to. And this is it. This is it. These emotional car wrecks, which is what that was. This is a fender bender. He backed into you.
Yeah.
And then we're just going to walk away from it because there's no point anymore. There's nothing to be saved. There was a bottom line that got crossed so profoundly that more or less it's the functionality of this relationship.
I watched the movie Blackberry last night, and I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Not yet.
You knew that it was destined to have a train wreck, not just because of the technology, but because the lack of humility that eventually would take over. And then the head guy, the business guy behind it, obviously doing some not so good things. SEC had to move in and all that, lacking vision of what iPhone was going to become for us all. But at the same time, just the idea of the craziness and the yelling and the this and that. And you're going like, how can anybody put up with that forever and care how much money you're making? And it's funny, the one guy that was the 33% owner of the company, that was sort of the one with wore the headband and looked like he was, looked like Jerry Garcia, right? Look, and he was coming in. They finally got rid of him. His best friend got rid of him. He's one of the richest people in the world right now because he sold all his stock options in 2007 before everything went haywire. But you knew that just if they were portraying the lead guy, one of the lead guys, the business guy, the guy that was going out and doing all the lugging and pulling in sales and all, the sales guy, then you knew it was destined to fall. And but it's because he was an emotional wreck to everybody. I mean, it wasn't comfortable to even watch the movie. I wonder what it was like in real life, if they inflated his character or not, but they're in the business world. So I can imagine these people you guys consult all the time, and you go into a situation. Mike and Randy, both of y'all, have y'all been into a situation where you walked into a leader that is emotionally out of their minds and you knew there was nothing you can do?
Oh,
absolutely. And I'll use a story that's even back before I, got into the business world. Talk about golf, back when I played golf for a living, I remember that there was a golf pro, and I won't use his name because he's passed now, but there was a golf pro out of Minnesota that was incredibly talented, maybe one of the best ball strikers I'd ever seen. But he was volatile like you couldn't believe. I mean, he could go off, and the story is that he was playing in he got onto the tour, was playing on the tour, and he got into a situation where he was head to head against Nicklaus, and he had a meltdown on one of the last holes, and Nicklaus beat him. And he walked off the golf course, and he was so pissed off that he said, if I can't beat Nicklaus, I'm not going to play anymore. And he walked off the tour and never played there again.
I mean, he takes the greatest player in all time and use that as your
right. Yeah, and that's that volatility, and I saw it many times when I played with him. I mean, he could go along for 15, 16 holes, and then he'd have a meltdown, and depending on at what point of the round, it would either completely derail his round, or he'd, just had to hang on to the wheel while he finished it up
Yeah.
to maintain a decent round. But it's that volatility, I think, that there's a difference between being emotionally passionate
Yes.
about what it is you're doing or what your vision is or how you're leading your people versus this volatility. And I certainly think that, some of this volatility that we're seeing right now is happening, places of fairly important leadership today. And I think that volatility is very, very dangerous. And I think that from a leadership perspective, when that kind of thing, when the volcano blows, man, you don't want to be around anywhere when it blows. And I think that's the challenge with leaders that can't harness that and can't control it, where that volatility really becomes a danger, not only to them, to their businesses, but also to the people around them.
That has me thinking, I had to write it down. I've seen this in the music business with musicians in clutch, very important moments when things were about to happen. That there's a gift that some have that is self-sabotaging in a moment of opportunity that becomes so real to them they can't accept it or take it. So
Yeah.
instead they make it crumble right there in front of you, and they don't want it. So they don't want the success. Is that actually something that I'm
Yeah.
crazy that I've seen this? So the opportunity becomes so real and they fold every time. But then they blame everybody around them.
Oh, yeah,
And there are
absolutely.
a thousand excuses why I didn't get there. And I'm going like, I know why you didn't get there. I saw what happened, but what is that, Randy?
So we start talking to ourselves at whatever age, 4, 5, somewhere in there. So we start telling ourselves a story about ourselves. And we're trying to get some continuity in our life. We wake up every day is a little bit the same, a little bit different, so it's about how do we deal with all this stuff. And then we've got these people in our lives that are our parents, and we're not going to get into the psychological aspects of this particularly today, but suffice to say, we now have really interesting maps that can show that those points of breakdown that people experience can almost always be traced back to developmental moments that were incomplete in their formation and their growth, right? So what I'm getting to is we've been telling ourselves a story, and that self-talk, that who is that talking to us in our mind? What is that voice that is saying, why would you want to do that? Or you should never do that, or he can't do that, or there's always this voice in there. It's usually being kind of nitpicky, and depending on how you were raised, can be very toxic. Self-talk that is toxic is, I think, the most crucial thing, where you'll see somebody who seems like they've got it all, but they cannot get out of their own way. And that's because whatever this little imp is inside their brain is taking control. And I've come to try to start thinking of my thoughts as like clickbait. Just because I have a thought doesn't mean I have to follow it. Doesn't mean I have to hang on to it. Doesn't mean I have to think it's right. So, but if I'm just hanging on to every thought that comes across, I'm
Or
now.
that you did.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
well, there's that all caps.
I guess they're not called tweets anymore.
Well, let's
But yeah, so
you're done. Let's talk about the emotional people that have to tweet when it's on their mind rather than taking a second to think about.
yeah.
Go ahead. That's another thing.
So what I'm getting to is, I think so much of these dynamics around this kind of interpersonal emotion center around the degree to which we feel like I can be vulnerable with you. I can tell you how I actually feel. So I typically am going to act out when I don't have that sense, when I feel trapped or I've got no other, and I need you to know that even talking to me is don't even talk to me about that last putt, because you can see that I am just, and so what we're doing is I'm using emotion to say to everybody else, stay away from me. I'm raising the cost of this engagement. So you won't criticize me like this thing in my head is doing.
In the regular working world, which I don't consider my world regular, I can tell you it's got to be the same. When you're on stage with a band and there's a member that it just doesn't feel, it's amazing what it feels like to the rest of us.
Yes.
It's a very uncomfortable feeling. It's an awful feeling. I got to be honest with you, because once you have it, wherever all the pieces are right and the people are right, the individuals that make the band up. And when I go play live, it's about us. It's not about me. Everybody is as important as I am. I know I've got the center stage mic and all that, but my band's not 14 feet behind me. They're out front with me. My guys are out front. So, I cherish that. I relish looking left and right and seeing Jason and Chris all these years, 31 years, 26 years, And so it's a big deal to me to turn around and see Rudy 21 years. And my drummer before that was a long time before that. And so it's a comforting, wonderful, beautiful feeling every time. But I remember when it wasn't that way. And that it was just nauseating. You knew something was wrong. You were sort of stuck sometimes in a situation, especially when I was here first before I went to Nashville, had choices beyond the best players here whose lifestyles a lot of times I didn't understand. But with all that said, I imagine in the work world, in the work office, if you have that going on, especially a leadership role, that it's just got to be septic.
Yes, it is. And one of the things that we can say as married people, one of the things that drives me nuts, if you've ever gone out with another couple and they're bickering,
Mm-hmm.
or he says something and she rolls her eyes and kind of dismisses him in some sort of, that just drives my wife and I up a wall, because we have a very strong sense that a united front is crucial in these situations. And it just feels so awkward when you see the relationship is split because they're showing those emotions
Yeah.
out there. So it's all this weird social game, and it comes down to the degree to which I feel like we can have conflict. So the first thing is, can I be vulnerable to you? And then the second thing is, can we have productive conflict? And this is where we suck in this country. We are the worst at productive conflict. If I have any conflict with you, it's almost like, come on, let's take it to the streets.
Let's get it on. Sorry.
Let's get it on out there. And it's not at all helpful.
No.
So this is where we begin to see how the cultural values start shaping what we think is okay and appropriate. Somewhere along the line, this person felt it was okay and appropriate to throw their golf club. In a Benedictine world, that would make no sense, right? They'd be taking away your vestments and ushering you out the door with golf clubs. Yes.
I just want to say this. You got me thinking about, I've got a song about everything y'all are talking about. And it got me a song that I hadn't ever released yet, called Fools for Love. And it goes, this morning the sun still rose. I gave you a kiss and you I gave you a kiss and unpacked your clothes. Said I'm sorry, and the tears were gone until the next time we get it on for our love. We're fools for love. I mean, some couples have to have it.
Steve's new song coming.
I know. I want to remix that bad boy.
There's a reason it hadn't been released yet. I don't know. I just maybe it needs to. I was waiting and saving it for this podcast. There it is.
Workshopping it.
Yeah, you can
workshop tweet a monk and a ridiculous academic. Yes.
Yeah.
I think from a
go ahead.
Benedictine standpoint, I think there's two words, and you guys have heard me use these two words many times before, but obviously the first one is humility. It's really the leader that understands that it's not about me, it's about we. It's not about how great I am or I'm all that in a bag of chips, as Randy would say. It's about making those around me better. And when we have that emotional volatility, when we have those situations where all we have is that self-talk that says it's all about us, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to exercise humility. The other word that I love is magnanimity. And magnanimity, the idea of seeing the greatness in others. And if we're so busy with self-talk, seeing the greatness in ourselves, we're not allowing that to happen. And from a leadership perspective, that's incredibly important, because if we can't see the greatness in those around us and in those others that we serve as leaders, then we lose the ability to create impact, not only with our people, but within our organizations, our businesses, et cetera. And so I think those two words, and those are really, two words that we use when we talk about Benedictine stability, and really having that groundedness or rootedness that says, this is who we are. We're comfortable in our own skin, and we don't need to be that in a bag of chips to
Right.
make sure that the whole world understands that. And we're going to make sure that everybody knows darn well that this is all about us and nothing else. And I think, Steve, even I'm anxious to watch the BlackBerry movie because I have a sneaking suspicion there's a lot of that in there.
Yeah. So first off, 2 things. One time, more time, if you guys, excuse me, mention a bag of chips again, I want to know what flavor they are, and I'm getting hungry. Is there French onion dip? I mean, what's going on here? All right. Second of all, my mind, y'all, this is how my crazy mind works, and you guys may go, Steve, go lay on the couch for a little bit. Let's fix you. I've always seen humility in a jar. So as you get humbled in your life, depending on the impact of that humbleness, there's bigger moments where it really, and as you fill up your humility jar, when it's at the very top and you got the screw on top and everything, that's when I feel like you could be your best. And I just have always felt that way. And so even if I don't want to have the jar filled up, and I know that I hadn't been humbled in a long. I now look at me. I am on top of the world. Something happens that fills that sucker back up, and then I realize I'm a better person. So, and it hurts a lot of times to be humbled. You know, it hurts when your kids are humbled, and when you see them work hard and not quite get to where their goals were, and they're humbled, and it hurts. It hurts, especially as a parent for your kids. It's way worse than anything we can experience personally for ourselves. But anyway, that's how I see the humility.
Well, and it's interesting though but the way that you use that word, Steve, you're saying being humbled. You're talking about it as a verb that somebody is doing it. Somebody is doing it to you. I'm talking about it as a noun that says this is who I am. You know, now certainly those things that happen to you, those things that humble you over the course of time are important in who you are. But I think the other aspect of that, and I think we see this a lot, is that people can't exercise humility until they've been humbled.
Sure.
And I think the challenge is being able to exercise humility without having to be humbled. That's
interesting. I mean, how is that even possible?
Well, again, it's one of those things where we have to understand that there's an inner work that has to be done. There's an inner work that we need to work on personally, and whether that's through, study, learning, meditation, prayer, whatever you want to call it, there's a way to kind of bring ourselves inside, to think of ourselves as being humble, as serving a greater purpose, as doing the things that God wants us to do versus us having something happen to us that humbles us.
Yeah.
And I think that's lifelong work. It's not something that you just, do a 12-hour course online and you got it.
And this is really hard work that Mike is talking about. This is and some people are better at it than others. So if you have the feeling that your mind is like in Asia, they would say like it's a tree full of monkeys, screaming monkeys. That's your mind. It's just constant craziness going on. There's just always something happening up there. That's okay. If you ask people, that most people say that's what they're feeling right now, is they just have this feeling that they can't control what's going on in their own mind. And it's a very rare and unusual person, usually somebody who's got some lifestyle commitment either to the cloth or to kung fu or God knows what, that's got them where mind control is a big part of who they are professionally or in their life. Anyway, if you feel like it's crazy in there, you're not crazy. It is crazy in there. And we're beginning to understand that different parts of your brain, particularly in regard to emotion, are just really dastardly. So your prefrontal cortex right up here is what's deciding what's good, right, and appropriate, where the role is. I should do that. That's what I should do. That would be the right thing to do. My gosh, that's it. That's a good and noble thing to do. But emotions come from slightly different parts of the brain. And there's another part of the brain down there, the amygdala, who's worried about what's going to go wrong. You're going to get eaten by a bear. And so the amygdala is constantly going on. And this fight, your brain is fighting. There are signals that are counterintuitive in your own brain. And it's because your brain has evolved for all kinds of different purposes. One part of it is stay alive, don't get eaten by the crocodile. The other one is have good relationships with the people around you and you depend on for your life. And those two things diverge. Wow. And so if you have the feeling that it is a fight in there, you're right. So how do you deal with that? Well, This was told to me by a person at Microsoft, and he's kind of one of these days we'll do a whole episode on this guy because he was the craziest consultant I've ever met, but he was extraordinarily effective. We had a big experience going on, and I said it as a joke. I said, well, you're about to go main stage on this big deal. Well, what do you do before you go out there? And he goes, and he had some name for it. I don't even remember what it was. I do try something breathing. And I was like, oh, okay, well, what does that look like? And he goes, I'm doing it right now. And I said, okay, well, what does that look like? And he said, it's this. He takes one breath and then he breathes in again on top of the first breath, and then he slowly releases. And he does that 3 times. And it turns out that simple little is one of the best things you can do in 2 seconds to get your brain to go, what? That stutter step in the breath interrupts vagus nerve and other things that are going on. And it just goes like this. Hey, hey, hey.
Time out.
And if you can interrupt it for a second and then you can gain control, then you can quiet the monkeys down and you can begin to go on about your business. And I bet you that this is what I'm thinking about the top of this conversation with your golfers, those golfers are paying somebody thousands of dollars an hour to work on their brain and not their swing, right? So that stoic positioning is because that therapist said, dude, you got to keep it in a bubble, man. If it goes even 2 degrees out, or if you get happy, you cannot be happy. That's the thing. You hit a good ball. That doesn't mean you get to have a moment of bliss or joy. No, you hit a bad ball. Doesn't mean you have a moment of terror and awfulness. It's all got to be in that middle bubble.
I think Randy found his after coaching, after consulting life. Well, you'd be good with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doc, you're the
doc. He's got me hitting on an oxygen bottle and doing yoga poses.
Yeah.
Oh, Randy,
I can see him on the range strumming the ukulele.
Yeah. I mean, actually, Randy would be a professional golf doctor.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
This will be a new career. I'll look forward to it.
You're laughing, Randy, but you would be excellent at it.
Well, I appreciate you.
You would.
So this is the thing. What I'm becoming to realize in my almost, knocking on 100 years old myself, I feel like I'm now beginning to give myself more grace in terms of the self-talk, because I realize it is a wackadoodle madhouse in there. It's being changed by by my coffee, by my food, by my environment, by the sunshine that I have out there. I need to get on my lily white legs from living in Oregon. Yeah. So,
and by the constant barrage of information that we get. That's the other piece of
you
this.
You need to be this, you need to be that. And these kids, how do they do it?
From a physiological standpoint all we want, but it's also that constant barrage, whether it's social media, whether it's the news, whether it's whatever it is, it's that, and right now it's that constant barrage of right or wrong, and whose version of right or wrong is it?
Amazing. Whose version? I love the word version.
How do you center yourself to say, I'm not going to allow myself to fall into that trap that says I'm going to join the party and say either these people are right or these people are wrong or whatever the case may be. I'm not going to fall into that party. I'm going to stay calm.
So now we're back. Let's go back to social media now. And let's pick X. Let's pick Facebook, let's Meta, whatever it's called. So let's talk about that. You can truly quickly find out in the massive amount of people, where emotionally they are in the bipolar emotional spectrum. I mean, it's unbelievable how many people have to say what's on their mind, no matter who it hurts, or no matter what. And now it's just gotten to be, you're hiding behind this screen, right?
Right.
I mean, everybody's pretty tough behind the little fingertips.
Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's really unbelievable how many people have to say it the minute they think of it, impulsively, emotionally, a wreck, and they have to go out and say it. And it's overbearing. It's very nerve-wracking for me to read it.
Right.
I notice myself needing to take the skip breath now.
Right.
Because I'm going like, who says this stuff?
Yeah.
And why do they have to say it? Like, why?
Right.
And those are the people on the golf course that are out of control.
Yeah.
Thank goodness
and it's interesting. I mean, we did we did a whole podcast on the idea of pausing, and It's that idea that people just have to spew this stuff immediately when they think about it.
Is that Stasia?
We've got a leader of the free world right now that all he wants to do is spew it when he thinks about it, and it's that knee-jerk reaction that creates so much damage that it's one of those things that people need to just, before I react, before I say anything, I have to stop. I have to stop and pause, do your little breath thing that you talked about, Randy. Get my brain back to a calm state.
Right.
Because it's causing so much damage in the world today, not only from a standpoint of people and individuals, but organizations, institutions, governments, all of those things. It's that knee-jerk, immediate reaction. It's that dopamine hit that we get when we post something and says, there, I'm going to let the whole darn world know about it, and not thinking at all about the consequences of what
millions of people doing this. It's not just one person, it's millions of people.
That's
and
right.
It's
yeah.
great.
So we can wrap this one up and we can say that is all true, but it is also true that moment of peace at a concert, that moment when you have a moment of joy, when you feel like it's everybody that you're standing around swaying to the music with, that now we're a group that I don't even know you, but I feel like I'm your brother or sister or whatever. Oh, it's like all those things that are negative, it's true. But if we have a moment of peace in our day, if we can bring peace to someone else, if we can give and share grace with someone else, those things add up and count too. And by and large, it's the only reason in the world we're not dead is because of that grace. It is because of the millions and billions of little things that nobody's talking about that are good, because all we like to talk about is the bad stuff.
Right.
But let that flourish and let that grow, and be patient with yourself as these emotions come up. And I'm really a big fan of saying, when it comes up, just go, oh, look at that emotion. There it is. Wow, oh, that makes sense that I feel that way, of course. And then you just sort of let it'll go. I see emotions like a wave in an ocean. It came from the ocean. It's going to go back to the ocean. Just give it a little time. Take that pause, take that breath, but understand that the emotional presentation of self is how other people are going to react to you, much more so than anything you do. So you could be a great surgeon, but if I can't be around you, then keep me under. I'll use your skill, but I don't want to be around you as a person.
Right.
And that's the thing. So emotions, I think we could talk about this a lot more. One of the things I think would be a cool topic would be to talk about the difference between differentiating communication and disintegrating communication. You like Chinese food and I like Mexican food. Okay, that's all right. We are differentiated, as opposed to you eat the same crap all the time. What the hell's your problem?
Yeah.
Right. That's differentiating and disintegrating. And this is where people get confused.
Yep.
I'm ready.
That'll be another issue.
Yeah.
All right. Well, bring us home.
I'll bring us home. Leader.com, leader.com. We are noticing a lot more downloads now. Over 2.5 months. We have, we're up like, I say it's 300%. My math's better than mine. Mike, you're right. You're really doing better. And we appreciate you guys listening, downloading, sharing with your friends, sharing with your work folks, with your fans. Come on. We appreciate you guys. We can come see you live the show, and we feel like that we can impact in a great way if we can get in front of folks. So remember, you can do that. Go to resonanceleader.com. Check out everywhere you can find us to stream. We're available on YouTube if you want to stare at us for a little while. And we'll be cool. We appreciate you guys so much. On behalf of the Dr. Randy Harrington, the author, and the man behind it all, Mike the Monk Guy Farrell, myself, Steve Azar. We're grateful for you guys later on.
All right. See you guys.
Care.
Thanks for listening to Resonance. Find us at resonanceleader.com.